folks. Christy here, Professor Thomas, whatever the case may be. I'm doing the little snippet video. These snippets are in correlation with the chapter over conflict management. I'm not going to do a lecture over everything in the chapter. I'm just going to hit a few points. What I'm going to discuss right now is interpersonal conflict, the definition, how it's defined within the book. And there's 4 characteristics that's discussed in the book about it, which we're going to chat about. Excuse me if you see me keep looking off to the left here. My book's set up, and I'm set up in a different room. My kids are awake, so I got to kind of hide out. Well, not hide out, but go to a location they won't come to. And this is my craft room that you see behind me, my craft and studio room. I've been busy making masks for people during the lovely world, our lovely reality right now. But how are you all doing? How are we handling all classes online? I know this class was originally online, so this particular class doesn't stray too far from our norm, so to speak. Anyway, let's dive into conflict management in regards to our text. The book's definition, excuse me while I read it to you. Let me see if I can set it up in an easier format to read it. It's an expressed struggle between at least 2 interdependent people who perceive incompatible goals, scarce resources, or an interference in the achievement of their goals. So what we're going to do in the next little hot second is we're going to break down basically the book's definition from excerpts from the book. So the book talks about how there's 4 elements within interpersonal conflict. So the first it talks about is within the elements is an expressed struggle. An expressed struggle, this is where we know the no. It's out in the open. Someone, if not both parties, are unhappy with a current situation, a topic, insert here. Now, not all expressed struggles are intense and yelling and screaming, ah! Nor are they all subdued and the intensity of the struggle is based off of the emotional factors, and the emotional factors, I got a bunny sticker. Sorry, I got distracted easy. My daughter attacked me with stickers this morning while I was throwing on some clothes and makeup. The intensity of the struggle is based off each person's individual needs and or wants or desires of the situation. So like I said, it can be intense and loud, or it can be known. And then it can escalate to physicality. So, you can go from just, okay, I'm unhappy, here's why, I want this, you want this, or it just can escalate even higher. But that's the first element within interpersonal conflict, is there is an expressed struggle. The parties know it's known, it's out in the open. It's not hiding or festering under the surface, so it's out there. The next part, it has to be between at least 2 interdependent people. Now, interdependent is that it's based off of one another. So there has to be at least 2 in the conversation, in the struggle, in the conflict. And they have to be known, because when we say interdependent, someone's response and emotions are based off the other person. That's what we mean by interdependent. Now, if they were independent, this would not be a problem, because it wouldn't be an actual interpersonal conflict, because if you're completely independent, What you want, what you think, what you say, what you do would not affect anyone else because you're completely independent of yourself. The struggle has to be with at least two people, two known in the party between one another, whose messages or feelings or emotions are in communication is parlayed off of back and forth between each other. Okay, the third element is incompatible goals, scarce resources, and interferences. Conflict often happens because two people either want the same thing but different ways to get it, or they want separate, or they both want something and they can't have it, vice versa. When we talk about resources, this is when like money, time, what is the other one? Or something else is scarce. Long distance relationships, you have time is scarce. You may only get to see someone you're in a relationship with. Maybe, it could be once a week. It could be once a month. It could be once every 6 months. Whatever it may be, the time is a factor. If you're in a relationship with someone, you both go off to different colleges, location and time. Money is a big thing within dynamics that cause conflict. Could be their lack of, or insert here, it can cause a lot of frictions in relationships and cause a lot of conflict in interpersonal relationships. And that's not just intimate relationships, that's in all relationships is what I'm talking about there. And the same thing with interpersonal relationships with friendships when it comes to time. Maybe you and someone moves away. And it could be to a different town, it could be to a different state, whatever the case may be, or maybe they get involved with both of you are involved in different activities, so that takes away time, or work. You both can have separate jobs, so your time schedules aren't the same, so maybe you don't get as much time with each other to hang as what you did prior to it. So, this is what we're talking about. We talk about scarce goals and resources and interference. Then the last element is achieving a goal. People in conflict want something. You either want to be heard, you physically want to do something, you want to be seen, you want something. That's what's causing this conflict. You want more of someone. There goes time. You want to go on a vacation. One of you wants to go on vacation to Florida. One wants to go on vacation to Washington, D.C. You both want something. You both want a vacation, but you want separate. And right now you're at the tit for tat on how to get there, on how to get your way, per se. Which we'll get a little deeper into that, because the next part I want to break down is basically the conflict process. And the book has it kind of a linear pattern from start to finish, and I'll break that down a little bit more in a separate video. Right now, we've talked about the 4 elements that are part of interpersonal communication. What I want to do now is kind of jump forward the linear conflict process, and talk about the myths of conflict. So again, we're going to come back to the process of conflict, but first I want us to go to myths. Myths are tricky because I'm sure you have heard these myths before, and we're going to break down, I'm going to attempt to break down the conflict myths. The book gives us 4. So the first one is conflict is always a sign of poor interpersonal relationships. That's false. That's false. Conflict is a normal part of interpersonal relationships. It just happens. Whether it be with family, whether it be with friends, whether it be a intimate relationship, conflict will happen. And like I said before, conflicts are not just the screaming, throwing things, getting in each other's face. Conflict can be something as simple as, I don't want to say simple, because, the word conflict and simple are not a good combo, but it could be stuff as easy as, I keep saying as easy. more along the lines of, what do you want to eat? Oh, gosh, the joke of intimate relationships, What do you want to eat? Oh, I don't care, whatever you want. And then it goes back and forth and back. I don't want that. I'm not feeling that. Or da-da-da-da-da. That's conflict. You're not screaming. You're not throwing dishes at someone saying, I want Mexican. Ah, and the other person is screaming saying, I want pizza. That's what I'm talking about here. So conflict is always evident. You have your family, interpersonal relationships. Think of the siblings or cousins, or maybe you fight through your teenage years with your parents, or maybe you are a parent of a teenager, so you're really feeling the interpersonal conflict there. And since right now the majority of us are home, and unless you're an essential worker, which I say to you, thank you so much for being there, for doing all that you are doing. To the medical staff, to essential workers, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for risking for everyone else. My tangent appreciation. I'm going to bring it back to conflict is always evident. But it's normal. Sometimes it can be a signal of a more in-depth problem, like a deeper problem, but conflict is always an interpersonal relationship. So strike it from your mind that conflict means you're in a bad relation, that it's a sign of poor. It's in every relationship. And sometimes, yes, it is. There's deeper there, but conflict's in every interpersonal relationship. The second myth is conflict can always be avoided. That's not true either. The old adage, if you have nothing nice to say, I will say nothing at all. Well, that can prove to bubble up and make a conflict even larger than what it needs to be. It can't be avoided. It's always there, and it's always prevalent. It's how we choose to react to our conflict. Some people are more laid back and chilled. Okay, you were right, or I was, or, more easygoing. And then some people bottle it up. They just listen and take and in it, and they bottle, and then something not so large can cause an eruption like a volcano and spews all the underlying world that we got going on there. But conflict happens. Even in the best relationships, it's there. Just like we said before, it's not a sign of a poor relationship, and it can't be avoided. It's there. It happens. It can be over small things like, think of siblings. You took my shirt. You took my video game. Or, my time to pick the movie. It was my turn to pick the movie. To, I think I should be allowed to be out till 1 o'clock. All my friends are allowed to be out that late if you have a certain curfew or whatever the case may be. It's there. It can't be avoided. It's part of it. The third myth is conflict always occurs because of misunderstandings. It's not lack of understanding. It's just a disagreement. It could be because of lack of understanding on someone's part, but it could also very well be, you just have different viewpoints, different ideas, different reasonings. It's not always because of a misunderstanding. It can be, but not always. It could just be because there's a disagreement there. Maybe you wanted to paint the house gray, and someone you're living with painted the house tan. That's a disagreement. You want gray, they want tan. Something, say you're getting married. I want chicken, but I want fish. It's a disagreement, but it's there. It happens, and it's not because there's a misunderstanding. The other person wants this, but you really like this. Or dinner, or, whatever it's more than just misunderstanding is what we're talking about here. The very last conflict can always be resolved. I would love to sit here and tell you that any conflict you had in interpersonal life would be resolved. But as most of us know, that's just not the case. Sometimes it's not resolvable at this point, it's, you can either agree, it's more those agree to disagree. I see your point, I hear your point, I understand your point, but that doesn't mean I'm with you on this point. So it's not always resolvable. Sometimes it causes the dissolution of interpersonal relationships, be it family, friends, intimate, coworkers, whatever the case may be. It's not always solvable. I wish it was, and I wish I had a magic little wand in the world to be like, okay, all conflict can be resolved if you just hash it out. That's not the case. Sometimes we feel better after we hash it out, but it's still not resolvable. So, very quickly in this snippet, we talked about interpersonal conflict defined and the 4 elements attached with it. And then we also talked about the 4 myths of interpersonal communication and kind of how we debunk, I don't want to say debunk them, but a more breakdown of those. Now, I'm going to make another video and we're going to talk about the linear process of conflict. So, I hope you all have a wonderful day and a great week. Thanks.